Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we are going to be installing a 2018 WRX steering wheel on the Crosstrek. So I'm going to kind of go through all the things that you need, tools and parts to do this, but we're going to get right into it. Alright guys, so for the tools that you're going to need to do this install is first, obviously you are going to be touching the airbag system on the car, so you are going to want to disconnect the battery. So to disconnect the battery on the car, you are going to need a 10mm socket. Whenever I touch the battery, I just like to wear gloves just in case. But we're going to take off both terminals and put something like a glove over each terminal just to get it out of the way so you never have the leads connecting. After that, for the wheel, you're going to need a nice long and thin flathead screwdriver. And to take out the main bolt on the, the nut on the steering wheel, you're going to need a torque wrench with a 17mm socket, and the foot-pound to actually re-torque the wheel down is 29 foot-pounds, but when we get to doing that in the video I'll show you it, but I'm just kind of telling you guys the tools you need. Also, for the clock spring behind the steering wheel, just when you take the wheel off, we're going to use just a little bit of tape just to keep it 100% straight. After that we'll take it off, but again, when we get to that point in the video I'll tell you what to do. Right now I'm just going to disconnect the battery. You guys have seen me do this a million times, so if you're following at home, go and disconnect your battery. Alright guys, one quick little tip when doing the battery, as I'm going to be actually in the car, is the window is down and the car is unlocked, just so that I can get in and out of the car without having to reconnect the battery. Alright guys, so once you have disconnected your battery, what I was saying is just take, a microfiber or a rag or some gloves and put them on the terminals just so you can put them to the side of the battery. You won't touch anything and you won't have to worry about your battery reconnecting, arcing, you name it. I'm going to get into a little bit of details as to what I picked up and the fitment on these cars. So I got a 2018 WRX steering wheel of a 50th anniversary WRX, so it's a pretty rare model, and I did get another part, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So for the 2012 to 2015 Crosstrek, you can retain your same airbag and this bottom piece of trim on the bottom here. You can use the WRX wheel one, but you'll have a small little millimeter of gap between the airbag and this piece of trim. Otherwise, you have to get a piece off of Forester. I will confirm a bit later as to what model and year you do need. It's just to close the gap. So obviously, as I have a 2017 Crosstrek, 2016s and 2017s sadly changed the design of the airbag in those years, so I actually couldn't retain my factory airbag. I need to take the whole wheel out and swap it. So the other day I picked up a 2018 WRX. It came out of an STI, but it's the same airbag from the 2015 to the current WRX and STI airbag. This was out of a 2018 STI with 18,000 kilometers on it, so it is in really, really nice shape. This is what you're going to need to use if you have a 2016 or 2017 Crosstrek. So that's what the airbag looks like, and it is different to the wheel on this car. Alright guys, so the first step of this install is actually disconnecting the airbag from the steering wheel. So I'll use the WRX wheel as a bit of a display for right now. So on the back of your wheel, just behind here, there is 3 access holes. So one here, one on the bottom, and one on the side where the controls are. So what you're going to need to do is get your long and thin screwdriver, flathead. You're going to stick it in there, and you can use a flashlight as well, and you're just going to try and locate the pin, which is these guys here, pin here, pin here, pin here, and you're going to push it up to unlock the airbag from the Alright guys, so I've got the airbag disconnected. My screwdriver was just a little bit too wide at the top to get into the holes, so I ended up using a chainsaw like sharpening tool. It's just basically a thin rod, but you locate the pin and push it in. Anyways, you could really use anything like a thin nail, something of that nature. And now we can just pull the airbag out. So just be careful because connectors are there. So now what we're going to want to do is, there is a orange and black harness coming off the clock spring. You're going to take your flathead screwdriver and just poke up this little yellow tab on the top two of them. Take that off, and then there is a grounding wire, from the clock spring as well, and we're going to unclip that, and that's the blue wire. There we go. So we have successfully disconnected the airbag. Again, yellow or orange, black, there's a yellow nib to the top of it. You just put your flathead under that, pop it up on the two of them, and you can pull the harnesses off. Here is a ground for the clock spring, and you just pull that out and you've disconnected your airbag. Alright guys, so once you've taken the airbag out of the wheel, it is a good recommendation just to take a photo of how the wheel is sitting in the car. Also, make sure your wheels are as straight as you possibly can, and the wheel is straight in the car. So I'm just gonna go take some photos now of making sure the wheel is straight, and so for reference, when I put the wheel back on, we'll know where it goes. Alright guys, I just took you off the glass just so you can guys get a bit better of a view as to what this all looks like in here. So this is your orange and your black harness on the back of the airbag. There's a little yellow tab. Yeah, so those are the yellow top bits of that you pull your flathead under and poke those out, and this is your grounding wire that you just pull off. So now that your wheel is 100% centered, it should have been centered before, but now that you've confirmed it is centered and you took a photo on your phone, we are now going to unplug this harness here from the clock spring, which is your controls on the wheel. So we're going to unplug that, and when you are going to pull out the wheel off the steering column, you're going to have to undo this 17mm nut. Just break that loose, and don't undo it all the way, because we're going to have to rock this wheel back, or pull it towards you but rock it back and forth. And so when you break it free, it doesn't smoke you in the face. It's just good precaution. But also be careful and slow when you're doing this, because you're going to have to pull this harness from the clock spring through this hole here, and you don't want it to get caught on anything. So be gentle, slow, and then you can feed that harness through that window. Okay. Alright, so now I've just got another socket wrench with the 17mm on it, and just a extension. We are going to use the torque wrench after we put the wheel back on and torque that nut down to 29 foot-pounds of torque. But for right now, we're just breaking it free, so don't have any worry. Before I do that, I am going to disconnect this harness from the clock spring. There's a tab on top of it, and the harness is just kind of tucking over it. Just push down with a pick or a flathead screwdriver, and we can disconnect the controls from the clock spring. So we've broken our nut free, and we're just gonna there we go. So now that the wheel is broken off the steering column and the nut is just holding it on, we're going to undo that, the 17mm nut. And again, just be careful pulling this harness through so you don't pull it out of your clock spring. Now that the wheel is off, the clock spring is right behind it, and just make sure it's nice and straight, and we're just going to put a little bit of tape in it just to tape it there for the moment. When we put the wheel back on, I pull the tape off, and she'll be straight. Alright guys, so now that the wheel is off the car, we are going to do the absolute reverse of everything I just did. So we're gonna grab our wheel here and we are gonna plop it onto the car. So again, be careful of this harness. It's for the clock spring. We're gonna put that through this gap right here, feed the wires through, and then we're gonna connect the steering wheel control harness into the top of the clock spring. And then we will get our airbag. We will connect the harnesses up to their corresponding places, I guess. And we're gonna put our grounding wire back on. So I will time-lapse this bit as you've understood how it's done, but it's a really simple install. Alright guys, so as you can see in that time-lapse, I put the wheel back on, I pulled the airbag harness through, I put the harness for the steering wheel controls connected back to the clock spring, torqued it down to 29 foot-pounds of torque with my torque wrench, took off the piece of tape for the clock spring, and I also connected the airbag again and the grounding wire. Now what we're going to do is these three pins, I guess, 1, 2, and 3, one on the bottom, you're just going to align it into the steering wheel and give it a push in each corner, and you should hear an audible click, and that will tell you that the airbag is seated properly. So there's 1, there's 2, there's 3. Wow, that feels nice. And give it one more, the battery's disconnected, it's fine. Just a nice little push in each corner. Feels mint! Let's go, boys. I look wicked. Alright, I will show you how the wheel looks. Alrighty boys, this is what the wheel looks like, and holy god, does it ever look good. Total difference from the stock wheel. It's got the nice contours, nice leather stitching. Just looks so much more modern and high-end. Don't look at that, we will get into that in another video. But yeah, so I'm now gonna go reconnect the battery. I'm gonna actually just sit in the passenger seat first and reconnect the battery, just so if anything happens, it's not me sitting in front of the steering wheel and getting the airbag in the face.